All right, good afternoon. Obviously, good to start the week off after a win. That was a good day for our program. The victory was a result of a lot of people's hard work and from players to coaches to support staff. It was good to see our fans and all those people be able to celebrate a victory. So it was a good day on Saturday. Obviously we've put that one to rest and moved on. As we begin our preparation for the TCU game. Obviously, TCU is a very talented team playing at a high level. Climbing as high as I think somewhere around number 5 in the polls. Gary Patterson has done a tremendous job at TCU for many years. A Kansas native, drive by his hometown many times, recruiting the state. And I see the sign out there, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And honestly, in the last 10 years, I've spent countless hours in the off season watching TCU's defense, trying to steal ideas because they've been he's been one of the best defensive coaches in college football for a long time. On offense, obviously they're putting up a lot of points, a lot of yards, led by their quarterback Boykin, who's a special athlete and having a tremendous year. Very talented group, and as I mentioned already, always a tough defensive squad. We look forward to the challenge of playing TCU this Saturday, which will be our senior day. Let's send out a lot of very special seniors for the last game at Memorial Stadium, and hope to send them out on a positive note. Before we take any questions, want to acknowledge that, Coach Francis, congratulate him on our women's soccer program qualifying for the NCAA tournament and, being able to host a first-round matchup against, that team from the East a little bit. So, with that, we'll open this up to some questions.
When you're watching all those hours of film of Patterson defenses, you said trying to find ideas you can steal and whatnot. What do you look for? I mean, because obviously you don't have the same personnel. So do you look for those ideas and then go try to recruit that personnel, or do you try to adjust it to what you have, or all of the above?
I think, in the off season when you just sit down and you have a little bit of time to just go through what's really happening out there in college football, what are other people doing, what are they, how are they defending certain things, from offensive teams. You just put their tape on, you watch everything from how does their 3 technique get in a stance to how does he take on a block to what kind of coverage do they play, how they matching up with the front, how they handling all the different things, and if you just watch enough film of those guys, sometimes it just sparks an idea or gives you something, a little creative thought in there. And TCU's, for years they're on about a 5-year run where they're top 5 in the nation every year on defense. And I figured if they were doing that, they must be doing something right. So, it's kind of a copycat business, and not ashamed to admit that I've stole a few things there. So, but before we even continue here, we're the writers from the UDK here. Who we got here from the UDK today? All right. Now, make sure we get our money's worth today. I've been here for about 4 weeks now. Haven't heard a lot of questions from you guys. So sometime during this thing, I want to hear some questions from the student body here from the UDK, all right? We got to get your parents' money's worth on this journalism degree, all right? All right, let's keep going.
That's a nice way of telling me to shut up.
When you take off your coaching visor and just watch Trevon Boykin just as a football fan, what are your impressions?
I've been fortunate. I actually went through Mesquite West High School, and he was a senior in high school and got to see him practice as a high school player. And to tell you how smart I was, I thought he'd be a great safety. When you watch him, he's a special athlete. The guy truly is gifted with his athletic ability, speed, change of direction, all that. He has a cannon for an arm. He drops that thing back and wings it. He's kind of got one of those baseball pitcher wind-ups and lets it go. But the kid, he plays with energy. He plays with a spark about him. He has the appearance of one of those guys that is having fun playing the game.
What did you think of his front flip into the end zone last week?
Like I say, he's one of them guys that he kind of has that bounce to his step. Athletic ability kind of just comes out of him. True, I think he may be one of the best athletes in the conference at any position.
When TCU went to Patterson introduced that 4-2-5, how innovative was that at the time?
It was, because everyone else had kind of been the standard quarters approach with it, and he threw the nickel on the field. and in technical terms, start throwing that nickel outside of the second receiver, because at that point in time, everyone's battling, defending the zone read bubble game, and throwing it out there. And that simple little change up of putting the nickel out there and man coverage outside leverage on number 2, which everyone thought was crazy at the time. And he made a living doing it, and now it's almost the standard.
What's clicked for Boykin? I mean, you guys, the last couple of times I've seen him, have had some success slowing that offense down. Why is he so much more explosive this year?
Well, I know, they brought in Coach Meacham and Sonny Cumbie from, the different areas and tweaked some of the offense and some of the things that they were doing offensively. And I think that the changes that they made, fit Boykin's, his skill set a little bit better. And it's allowed him to utilize his ability to run the football, whether it be designed runs or, some freedom to make a quick decision. Either going to throw it or I'm going to go type mentality, and giving him that freedom. So I think a little bit the schematic change there has freed him up.
When you guys were able to hold their offense down, was that something you did that kept him from running, or a combination of that plus, what they were running?
Yeah, you have to have a plan of attack on how to not let him beat you scrambling. He converts a lot of third downs by scrambling, and it's an issue that he creates for you. So, in the past, we played quarterbacks like this. We're always conscious of making sure we're not leaving people on islands to try and tackle this young man by themselves.
Playing a lot of the seniors going out of this, Tony Pearson, can you just kind of comment? It's sort of been a checkered career with some injuries and position flips and what have you. You were inclined to moving back to running back. Just talk about that and just his whole career.
He has, first, anybody associated with our program that knows Tony on a day-to-day basis is a Tony fan. I don't know how you couldn't be. The young man is as polite and good-hearted a guy we've had in the program for a long time. He's a special individual, works extremely hard in the classroom, on the football field. I've never once heard a negative comment said about Tony and all the time I've been here. He truly is a special guy. And then on the football field, obviously a very unique talent and his ability to run and change direction. And, it came down to, we knew we had to get Tony the ball. And at wide out at the time, whether it be breakdowns in pass protection or breakdowns, with just not getting the ball delivered there, it was difficult to get in the amount of touches he needed playing wide receiver. And a guy that is arguably, the one guy who can break a play for us on our team, he had to get more opportunity. So that's what led to him coming back to tailback. But Tony's handled it all with the type of person he is, just unselfish. I'll do whatever I can to help the team mentality, and that's what he is.
100 yards rushing, it's just, it's kind of a milestone number, but how good was it to see him do that?
It was, because he works for him and he gets them, and like you mentioned, he's missed a few games in his career, which are unfortunate because he really is such a talented guy that he could have had a off the charts career. Obviously he's having a good career, but I don't think his talents have always been able to show him as much as what's truly in that guy's body.
How would you like the senior class to be remembered?
A group of guys that through some tough situations, tough circumstances, always stayed together, always stayed positive, continued to lead this team, continued to show up each and every day and work hard and strive to get better all the way to the very end. And we have seniors right now who show up to practice and continually work hard on the small things and little things. So a group of guys that never quit.
You always talk about, preparing for what's right in front of you, but senior day is a big deal, obviously. Do you handle that any differently to prepare these guys for the emotions that might be out there Saturday?
We're going to handle it in the different way, in that we are going to make sure that we show the amount of respect and appreciation to these guys through the course of this week. We're going to start today with a few things that are senior oriented. I'll never forget my senior last game and those type of deals, and it's emotional. And I think we have some tremendous seniors on this team that deserve all the appreciation we can show them, and we're going to make a point of doing that this week and let those guys know that their careers here were appreciated.
What do you remember about your senior day? Is it the game? Is it the pregame? Is it the emotion? Or do you remember any of it?
Yeah, like the part I remember is on the Friday night meeting before we got to address the team as seniors, and in the team meeting, and those always get a little bit emotional, and I'll remember that part about mine, seeing some guys who always pretended to be pretty tough get up there and cry like little girls. Myself included.
Hey, Clint, I heard you describe Ben as one of the most unbelievable kids you've coached. What has made him that for you?
He's a unique guy. Someone who truly can get himself emotionally just involved in everything. He whatever they say, wears his emotions on his sleeves, but he's all in. There's no doubt when you go to practice or you go into a game that you're going to get everything Ben Heaney has to help you at whatever the cause is. He doesn't question things. You tell him to do something different. He doesn't ask. He does it different. He does it to the best of his ability. He's a coachable young man that is 100% on your side, and he's always been that way.
It's a tough trait for what's gone on in the last 4 years, right? For him to still do that.
It is, because you change coaches, and every coach has a different way of presenting and teaching things and convincing young men that this is the exact perfect way to do it. And when you hear enough grown men come in and say, no, you got to do it like this or you got to do it like that, sooner or later you start thinking, well, one of these guys is wrong because they keep telling me something different, and then he keeps buying in and is fortunate that he's had the success that he has, operating in that manner.
What is it about Michael Reynolds that allows him to be so disruptive to other offenses?
Mike does a good job of a few things. One, he does go in there and he studies the person he's going to go against. He's very into that. He's into breaking down, the offensive tackle, obviously, most of the time. That guy's pass sets, that guy's tendencies, that guy's approach to things. He's big on the finding snap counts with the centers. But I would say Mike takes a very good mental approach to the game and the study of his opponent. And then, obviously, he has some given abilities to jump the ball and have some quickness.
Is there any pressure maybe taking off the seniors going into this game, having gotten the win the week before, that it's not their last chance to get one?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think, as we started this deal, day one with Dr. Zinger, we first had that first talk. One of our major goals in that deal was to develop a process and a way of operating as a football program, developing these guys fundamentally and teaching them how to play the game correctly, and I believe that we've had some success in doing that in the last 4 weeks, which I know seems minor, but from the way we talk to our players, the way we meet, the way we structure our practice, I think has created a process to where these guys have been allowed to develop better fundamentally. We wouldn't have won that game on Saturday because Iowa State is a tremendous fundamental team. And I always equate it to, boxing. Everyone knows how to get in the ring, put on gloves, and you're supposed to hit the other guy in the head. But the guy who has great fundamentals and trained, it's night and day between the difference. And football is not a whole lot different. If you're not prepared fundamentally, that can negate a lot of your athletic ability or advantages. And so, what we've done practice-wise to develop our fundamentals and that has allowed us to make some improvement throughout. And, So when we talk about pressure and those things, don't ever really see it that way. I see it as just the day-to-day grind of the process and our kids buying into that and getting ready for another one.
Clint,
one of your first personnel moves, so to speak, was throwing Michael in there at quarterback. Was it fair to say that in his time here in the last couple of years, he's either been kind of overlooked or undervalued, and that maybe now we'll really get to see what he's capable of doing on the field during a game?
Honestly, when he did have opportunities in the past, he made the most of them. He had some good games in there. I think through evaluations and different circumstances, being practiced, whatever the case was, I think that, the coaches at the time felt that other guys gave us a better chance, obviously. Mike's one of those guys that when he gets on the game field, he has a competitive nature about himself that I think really shows up in games maybe more than all the other times in practice and that, because when he steps out there, he finds a way to get things done.
Clint, with Victor Simmons, he's another guy that's changed positions a few times and been through a little bit. What have you seen from him this year, his kind of progression?
Oh, he did. You talk about going from a safety to a linebacker to now we have him, rushing the QB, and he really is. He's my third down hybrid guy. Every game I ask him to. I don't even know what his position is half the time. We just, and fortunately he's an intelligent young man that I can pretty much on third down do whatever I want with him, and he figures it out. We've had him play everything from deep middle this year to covering tight ends to rushing the QB. He's a good body type athletically and size-wise for that. You're talking a 220-pound, 225-pound kid who can run and change direction, intelligent, and he's been valuable in that we've been able to use him in so many different roles, and he kind of, he fits that package. And then first and second down, he's playing our buck position and doing a nice job there.
Early in this
asked a
deal.
lot.
Go ahead.
Oh, my man's up right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
From the
Go ahead.
UK,
Go ahead. I'm ready.
Darius Crawley played a little bit of running back in high school. What do you see out of him position, and has he been moved permanently?
He has been moved permanently for this season where we have him at. He is, he's one of those small, super quick, super fast guys. I could see his role changing again in the future here. We moved him to DB out of a necessity that we needed some quicker guys to cover. We get a lot of these matchups on inside receivers that are difficult in this league, and he has the quickness and stuff and, ability to do that. But, keeping the ball out of his hands in the future will also be tough because he does have just tremendous quickness and vision and stuff from what he did in high school. So he's a guy that I think, at some point in time he'll settle in, but I wouldn't say he's exactly where he is right now. It could change.
Early on, one of the things you said was that becoming the head coach was cool for you because it allowed you to have relationships with guys on the other side of the ball that maybe you didn't have the time to devote to. Does that make this senior thing a little more special? Because now, over these past 5-6 weeks, whatever, you've had time to spend a little more time with Tony and Jamae and Harwell and guys like that. I mean, does that add to this senior day week?
It does. It kind of takes me back to when, my first few years as a coach, I was a special teams coordinator where you got to work with the entire team. And it is back to that, I have reason and purpose to go talk to Smithburg and Nalu and, like you said, Jamae and those guys. To whereas in the past, you would talk to them, but it was more just as you pass them. Now I get to hunt them down and have messages for them. So yeah, we've done a lot of things that in the past 4 weeks I feel that have brought this team a lot closer together. Force situations to make them take their headphones off and put their phones away and pay attention to one another. And, I feel the team, it has a different feel to it in the locker room. We have players over here a lot more often when they're not required to be, which I think is always a very positive sign that a lot more fun things going on down that locker room and in the player lounge. So, yeah, we've allowed me to get closer to them, and I think, we've allowed them to get closer to each other.
Who was your senior day against, and how did you guys do?
It was against Missouri, and we shut them out 28-0. It wasn't even close. Non-competitive.
Coach Pham talked to you?
Coach Pham did talk. He had greatest speeches ever. Every Thursday. If anyone ever got to see a Coach Pham Missouri pep talk, you talk about classic. Quantrell's name over and over. Bad things. Quantrell did evidently graduate from Missouri. That's what Fambro taught us all.
Any update on any of your injury situations, Keon or DeAndre, or obviously Nolly went out too?
Yeah, we're getting better on that front. Very, very hopeful that, I'll be surprised, this week Keon will be in there, Bolton will be back in there, Joe Gibson battled through and continue to play. Our biggest concern right now, DeAndre Mann actually has a chance to get back in this week. Our biggest concern now is Nalu. Nalu, I say, is, he's, probably pretty questionable.
Did you put Keon in there when Nalu?
No, we put Big Junior in there.
Oh,
the young fella got in there and did a heck of a job. Nalu goes down and we're all standing there, and Junior gets in the huddle, and it's the true freshman kid going in. So I think it was Ben Heaney or Mike Reynolds went over to kind of give him a little pep talk, and Nalu had a confident grin on his face, like, don't worry about it, it's all good, and the young man went in there and produced.
that would be the way you go again then, right?
Yeah. If Nalu can't go, then Junior's up and ready.
That's got to be great to see at this point in the season. Some of those guys that, he was playing early, but just on field goal block or whatever, and not really getting the reps to see what you have in him.
Yeah, we snuck him in there late in the fourth quarter a couple times, but yeah, this was his first significant action from an early time in the game all the way through, and went in there and handled like a veteran.
It's like you've been asked a lot about TCU and Baylor and their athleticism and their speed. Talk about the physical style that they also play with.
Well, I tell anyone that'll listen that that's the most underrated thing about both of these teams. Both of them up front physically beat you up. People kind of get confused with the open style of offense and the tempo, and automatically think that this is a gimmick type offense or it's a pass first offense, when in reality they're a run first offense and they're a very physical run team. Both Baylor and TCU kind of operate that way. TCU's line plays very well. 2 tackles I think are very good on the outside. Center plays well, but yeah, they're a knock you off the ball type mentality, and if they can do that the whole game, that's actually their preference.
Clint, how do you stop a mobile quarterback when you can't get to him when an offensive line like TCU is so good?
It's been interesting to watch their games and see how other people approach it. You can see some teams who are consciously making an effort to rush 4 guys and not really get upfield with them, trying build the 4-man fence around it. Other guys have used 3-man rushes and spied him. Just hang a guy in there that can run him down when he goes. Other teams have tried to pressure him with control. The bottom line in pass rush is that you always take the base rush and you're rushing 4 where there's 6 openings up there with the O line, and you got 4 guys defending 6 gaps, and with a QB like that gets scary at times. So there's a few different approaches that you have to take, and you have to decide really what your approach up front, how it matches what coverage you're playing on each down. But I think a combination of all of them is usually the best way to go.